situations. Oftentimes they say they don't know. It does just turn out to be one person, though.
I think we can probably assume, though, that they do have a long gun, because the reports from the individual that was at the beauty salon, that is a considerable distance away for somebody that's using a pistol or a shotgun even, to where the officer was shot in the parking lot of that Chase Bank. That's going to tell me that somebody is shooting from a distance, obviously with a long gun.
And Harry, it's interesting, and I want to be specific here, because we spoke to a witness inside a hair salon who said she had heard 10 shots fired and she had seen an officer go down. She'd seen an officer get shot. She did not tell us she saw the officers firing back. Essentially, what she said she saw was officers getting shot at repeatedly.
Yeah, well, it looks to me that they knew the area where the gunfire was coming from for a police officer to return fire from where that officer was shot. Basically, you're not doing any good because it's too far away with the pistol. Now, I just read on the Fraternal Order Police Colorado Twitter here that they, about 2 hours ago, that the active shooter is barricaded in the Planned Parenthood building with multiple victims. And now that would make sense what John was talking about
again,
also here. But we don't know for sure.
We don't know. This is something that needs to be confirmed at this point. All we know is that the initial call came from an address associated with Planned Parenthood. We do know that obviously a lot of shots have been fired, and we did hear from a witness, again, at a nail salon, who told us one of the things police first told him was that there was a shooter inside Planned Parenthood firing out the window. That's it at this point.
That's pretty good information. You're hearing that from the word of a police officer, if this guy got the story right from the police officer.
One thing I would, if people are watching this, though, in the surrounding areas, now there's an initial area where it's kind of a dead zone, there's no houses, but right past that, there are lots of homes. If people are watching this, you need to be aware that this is going on and keep your wits about you, because this person, if they have a long gun and the ability to keep police at bay, can maneuver themselves. There's enough of a
All right, hang on one second. We're hearing now, again, from a police spokesperson.
But the 4 officers who were shot, or injured, were all shot?
Yes.
And have they been taken to the hospital, everyone who was injured?
We have not transported everyone to the hospital at this point. We're still working through the situation.
Still, some people presumably stuck inside that building?
Don't know until we get our officers in there and get an assessment of the entire situation.
Okay, the officers injured, have they at least been transported?
Yes, some of the officers that have been injured have been transported.
Some of them, but not all 4, or do we know?
I can't say for sure at this point, but I know that we've had 4 that were injured.
Do you know how many people are in there, shooters, or?
How many shooters?
Yeah. Is there one?
At this point, we've encountered 1, but we always train for the possibility of additional people there.
I apologize. My arm wasn't long enough.
That's okay.
That kind of blacks down.
To recap, it's 4 officers injured, plus civilians.
Plus civilians.
1 active known shooter.
Yes.
And they're in, are they in the center of Centennial? Is that what it is?
They're in the Planned Parenthood building, which is in the 3400 block of Centennial here.
The scanner said they had him cornered. Can you confirm that?
The officers inside the building have encountered the individual, and they're working through that at this time.
They're actively exchanging gunfire now? Is that correct?
As of about a minute ago, when I first came up for the briefing, they were exchanging gunfire with him.
Was this 4th officer, were they injured in this latest exchange of gunfire?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so the 3 were earlier.
Yes.
That's all we have right now. Any idea of how many total have been transported so far?
Do not have totals on transport yet. Okay?
So 4 individuals injured.
4 officers.
4 officers injured, and
yes.
How many more individuals?
I don't know how many civilians at this time.
No guess?
I don't. That would be unwise of me to make a guess.
All right. They were reporting 4 earlier. That's why.
Yeah, that would be unwise of me to make a guess.
Are you guys calling in folks from outside agencies outside the area now as well, or is this still just all kind of local?
So far, it has been resources from El Paso County, but we have also called back additional resources within our own department.
Lieutenant, could you clarify, so you're not sure of a number of civilians that have been
I do not have a number of civilians injured at this point. Yes, ma'am. There are civilians that are injured.
Is there anything I missed at the beginning that you need to go over?
No, this all started at 11:38 this morning with the call for service.
11:38.
Yes.
Was that, you say was that a shots fired call? Or?
It was a shots fired call.
Awesome. Thanks, Lieutenant.
Okay.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, a significant piece of information right there from that spokesperson for the Colorado Springs Police Department. She just told us that officers inside that Planned Parenthood building there are exchanging gunfire right now with the gunman, or gun person, I should say. 4 officers have been injured. We just heard that an unknown number of civilians have been injured, but there have been injuries to civilians. But the key piece of information now is we do have a geographic location. This is happening inside the Planned Parenthood building. And it is happening right now, and it is ongoing, according to that police spokesperson. Hopefully, we're going to re-rack that sound and listen to it again, because there was a lot of new information in there. Again, an active shooter situation going on right now in Colorado Springs inside that Planned Parenthood building. 4 officers injured, other civilians injured as well, and it's happening right now. We'll be right back. All right, John Berman here. The breaking news out of Colorado Springs just a few minutes ago. Police told us there was an active shooter situation ongoing inside that Planned Parenthood building. You're looking at a photo right there on the right. On the left, you're looking at live pictures of law enforcement and also medical personnel staging outside. Active shooter situation inside the Planned Parenthood. Police exchanging fire, we are told, over just the last few minutes with the shooter who is inside that building. 4 officers have been injured, we have been told. We were also told that civilians have been injured. We do not know how many. It is unclear if there have been any fatalities at this point. But again, the key here is an ongoing active shooter situation inside the Planned Parenthood, with an exchange of fire happening up until just a few minutes ago. On the phone with us right now is a man named Vince, who was outside that area not long ago. He heard shots fired. Hang on, we're just looking at live pictures right now. I just saw a body or a stretcher right there, someone being transported for medical care. You can see it on the left-hand side of your screen right there. Obviously, they're trying to get medical care for some of the people inside. We have been told that 4 officers have been injured. They have been transported already to medical facilities. An unknown number of civilians hurt. All right, on the phone with us now is a man named Vince. Doesn't want to give us his last name. Understandable. Vince was outside and heard shots fired, was in the midst of the shots fired. Vince, what happened?
Well, I was just walking into King Soopers to grab some groceries, and we were told to go back to our cars. And that's when a bullet cracked over my head and hit the stop sign on my left side. And I just kind of flipped the switch and tried to do crowd control and get people back to their cars as fast as they could. And it was about half an hour before I could actually get inside my truck and go away. And during that time, I was still trying to get the civilians away safely so that they weren't in the middle of everything.
So you had been told to go to safety, to go to your cars, and it was when you were on your way to the car that the bullet sailed over your head and hit that stop sign?
It was when I was talking to a lady at the King Soopers grocery store when the bullet flew over my head.
How many gunshots did you hear?
By the time I got to my truck and waited there, I heard about 20.
20 gunshots. Was it an exchange of gunfire, or was all the gunfire coming from one place?
Yeah, it all sounded like it was coming from King Soopers, or not from King Soopers, but Planned Parenthood.
So someone shooting from out of Planned Parenthood?
Yeah.
Could you see law enforcement firing back, or did you just see activity?
No, I couldn't see any law enforcement firing back, but I did see a few police officers traveling through the parking lot towards Planned Parenthood.
Did you see anyone injured or hurt?
No, didn't see any of that.
And at the point when this all happened, were you able to get into your car and leave the scene?
It was about a half hour before I could actually get into my car, and then I pulled around the corner to the gas station at King Soopers and stepped out and started turning people around there because I didn't want them going into the line of gunfire.
When was the last time you heard a gunshot?
About 12:40.
12:40. How long ago was that? About 2 hours ago?
Yeah, about 2 hours ago.
All right. Vince, thank you very much for being with us right now. We are glad that you are okay. The information we just got from Vince on the phone right now, he was outside. He heard about 20 gunshots. They all seem to be coming from the Planned Parenthood. He did not see officers fire back. We just heard from the Colorado Springs Police Department that there is an active shooter situation inside the Planned Parenthood. Police exchanging fire, encountering and exchanging fire with someone with a gun, a long gun, we are told, inside that Planned Parenthood. 4 officers injured, an unknown number of civilians injured as well. We just saw someone being moved on a stretcher a short time ago. We'll have much more right after a break. John Berman here in New York. The breaking news out of Colorado Springs, an active shooter situation inside the Planned Parenthood there. Police telling us just a few minutes ago that police are exchanging fire with somebody inside that Planned Parenthood. We now know that 8 people have been transported to local hospitals injured. Their conditions unknown. 4 officers have been injured. So 8 total, 4 of them officers. Those numbers could very well change. I want to go to CNN's Tom Foreman right now to give us a much better sense of the area where this is all happening, because the layout here, Tom, very important.
Yeah, and we've been hearing an awful lot of locations in the middle of all of this, John. If you think about it, we're all focused right now on the Planned Parenthood, which is right up in this area. But you've heard people talk about the Chase Bank. That is right down here. This distance is only, say, a quarter mile, maybe less, between the two. So a person on foot could actually run that in a minute and a half if they were a little bit agitated. You hear people talk about the King Soopers and these small shops. That's down here. King Soopers is a grocery store chain in Colorado. So it's right down in here. And this is another little restaurant area over here. So when you've talked about people saying they saw the initial action around Chase Bank or thought it was coming from here, if you were in this area and police were being shot at here, or there's some response here, it would be easy, especially with a high-powered rifle, to think it was at the bank when it could have been from this far away, because that's a short distance. But that gives you a little lay of the land, John, and some of the confusion surrounding all of this.
All right, Tom Foreman, thanks so much. The geography, the layout there is very important. We're just seeing people being led to cars. There we saw a woman there in a blanket, perhaps being led out from inside that Planned Parenthood building. We don't know how many people were inside the building. We do not know how many people injured total so far. At this point, what we do know is that 8 people have been transported to local hospitals, and we were told that 4 people injured. I'm joined here on set by Jonathan Gilliam, CNN law enforcement analyst, Harry Hauk, law enforcement analyst as well. Guys, a lot of new information, again, as people are being moved here, hopefully, to be taken care of. Hopefully, these people are doing okay. Jonathan, active shooter situation going on, police exchanging fire inside the Planned Parenthood.
Right, and we don't know in these pictures right here where exactly that is, because as Harry and I were just talking a moment ago, when you start to see ambulances move in, you're going to know that the threat has been eliminated. Until then, those ambulances will not move in. And with this, if this is a long gun such as an AR-15 or an AK-47, 600 yards is not a far distance to be able to
Harry,
shoot.
another thing we do know is that there are shots being exchanged inside the Planned Parenthood, officers engaging. And we also know that whoever was in there was shooting out, because we know that officers were injured on the street.
Apparently, the targets inside the location weren't enough for him, and he decided he was going to shoot at some people shopping in that area. So it just shows you how dangerous this person is, and we're starting to see a lot of movement here. And I'm hoping that with all this movement we're seeing here, that maybe this situation is over.
Let's hope. And we have about 45 seconds left, so let's keep our eye on the clock here, Jonathan. But this has been going on for a long time.
This is a long time for an active shooter scenario to be going on, and I just think that they most likely could not get close to this building because this individual had some type of a perch, or was able to get eyes on law enforcement as they came up.
All right, Jonathan Gilliam, Harry Hauk, thanks so much for being with us. Again, just to recap here, an active shooter situation going on inside the Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs. Police saying they have been exchanging gunfire with that person inside. We heard that just a few minutes ago. We heard just a few minutes ago that 8 people have been transported to local hospitals with injuries. We've seen people, for the first time really, we've seen people being led out here. So we do not know if this situation, if there's been a development in just the last few minutes. Certainly, for their sake, we hope it is over soon, but there is a lot of activity there. Again, active shooter situation inside the Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs. 8 people injured. We're going to have much more right after a quick break.
Vice versa. Diane and I MC their Medal of Valor ceremony.
This is CNN Breaking News. Breaking news, an active shooter at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs.
Inside the building have encountered the individual, and they're working through that at this time.
They're actively exchanging gunfire now?
As of about a minute ago, when I first came up for the briefing, they were exchanging gunfire with him.
Was this fourth officer, were they injured in this latest exchange of gunfire?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so the 3 were earlier.
Yes.
That's all we have.
Yep.
Now, any idea of how many total have been transported so far?
Do not have totals on transport yet. Okay?
So four individuals injured.
4 officers.
4 officers injured, and
Yes.
how many more individuals?
I don't know
unknown?
how many civilians at this time.
That update came in just moments ago, and as you heard, this is an incident that is focused on a Planned Parenthood clinic. Police say the situation is still active there, but a shopping center nearby is on lockdown along with a hospital. Some people there have been hiding behind locked doors for hours, and a witness reports hearing at least 10 gunshots and seeing an officer go down. Another witness said 20 gunshots. Police say at least 4 officers are hurt. We do have reports that 8 people now have been transported to local hospitals. Federal agencies, the FBI, the ATF, they have been called in, and President Obama has been briefed on this situation. Our correspondents, analysts, and guests have full coverage of this story, and we're going to begin now with CNN national correspondent Kyung Law. Kyung, give us the latest.
Oh, this has been going on now for 3 hours, Brianna. The initial call came out around noon local time, and the call came originating from the Planned Parenthood Center. What we now know is that 4 officers have been wounded, according to the police department. A total of 8 people transported to the local hospitals. What you're seeing happening between the officers and the one suspect they've been able to eyeball is that they are still exchanging gunfire. We've seen some dramatic video of police officers running on the ground, of pulling people out of that clinic. People have been wrapped in blankets. To give you an idea of what this area looks like, this is not just an isolated clinic. There is a grocery store nearby. There's a Supercuts nearby. There are about a dozen businesses, a lot of them busy because it is Black Friday. What we have learned from the police department is that they have seen the suspect with a long gun, and that is what he has been firing at the police department. Here are the important details that we don't quite know. We don't know exactly where all of this began. Did it originate inside the Planned Parenthood Center or outside? That is something that we have yet to learn from police while they're still dealing with this active situation. There is a Chase Bank nearby. We don't know if it started there and if it moved inside the Planned Parenthood Center, but what we can tell you is that officers have the suspect in their sights, and they are exchanging gunfire with that suspect who remains inside the Planned Parenthood Center. Brianna?
This is literally happening. This report that we got, the update that we got, Kyung, was that just really minutes ago, there was still this exchange of gunfire going on.
Minutes ago, that they had 3 hours in, they're exchanging gunfire with this suspect. What we have heard from the police department is that they have done the active shooter protocol. They have trained for this. Their officers have entered the building. But if you see these pictures of the people coming out, they've got to be worried about some of these people still inside. They perhaps don't even know exactly how many people remain inside, if anyone remains inside. This is all the stuff that they're still trying to sort through. They don't also know who this suspect is, at least they haven't said it publicly. They don't know if he was motivated to enter the Planned Parenthood clinic, and they don't know if the clinic was targeted. This is still very much unfolding, again, 3 hours after that initial call, Brianna.
All right, Kyung, thanks so much for the update. We'll be coming back to you ahead, but I want to get now to CNN Justice correspondent Pamela Brown to talk about the federal response. We know the FBI is involved here, Pam. Who else is involved in this?
That's right, Brianna. In fact, the FBI SWAT team is involved, is responding to this because we have what appears to be an active hostage situation underway, a gunman that is exchanging fire with officers. As we know, several people have been transported to the hospital, so the FBI SWAT team as well as the evidence response team there on the scene, and the ATF. I'm told that every agent in the ATF office there in Colorado Springs is now assisting, including the special agent in charge. You don't always see this kind of response, but this is clearly a very urgent situation. situation that is still underway, still not contained. And as a result, Brianna, the investigation hasn't even begun. They are just trying to contain the situation by getting this gunman. And last we heard, they were still exchanging gunfire. Also, I'm told that an emergency operations center has been set up there on the scene. We saw the mobile unit in some of the video. So that will help facilitate and coordinate the various law enforcement officers that are there on the ground to help in order to ensure that there's not chaos and that everyone is communicating and coordinating effectively. And I just want to point out here, Brianna, just in the last week, an intelligence bulletin was sent out from the FBI and DHS. It was a terrorism bulletin, but it still applies to this because it asked local law enforcement and federal law enforcement, state law enforcement to review active shooter protocol. This is something that these police departments train for. They coordinate their efforts and drills. Just this week, they were asked to review that protocol, and now they're putting their training into use with what appears to be this active shooter situation there at that Planned Parenthood. Brianna?
All right, Pamela Brown, thanks so much for that report. I want to get now to Bridget Wolf. She works very close to the Planned Parenthood clinic at a Japanese restaurant there in this shop plaza, and she's joining us now by the phone. Bridget, can you tell us where were you when this started, and tell us what you saw or what you heard?
Well, I was just having a normal day at work, but, you know, we saw the police vehicles pulling up, and, you know, we have a bank right across the street, so we just thought it was a bank robbery. But then SWAT came in, and they were towards the Planned Parenthood, which we could see through our windows very clearly. And it's just been ongoing since.
When you, Bridget, saw the police first come into this area, how much time passed between when the police first arrived and then when you saw SWAT going to the Planned Parenthood?
Oh, probably about 30 minutes.
30 minutes. And did you hear any gunshots?
I personally did not hear any gunshots, but we're also in a building that, you know, we're pretty, it's not, you know, like soundproof, but
sure.
You can hardly hear anything from outside.
Where are you now? Are you there in the building still?
We are still in our restaurant with half a dozen of the SWAT members with us.
Really?
Yes.
And why are they there?
Well, it was probably about 15, 20 minutes ago, it was an active shooting, and they came running into our place.
To seek cover?
Not to
warn
seek
you?
cover, but you know, because we have really large windows that is facing the Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe they could get the shooter from, you know, our windows, or I'm not sure. But I know it's not for cover.
Okay. So tell me, you're obviously this restaurant. How long have you worked at this restaurant?
20 years.
Okay. So I'm assuming, are you familiar with some of the staff from the clinic? Do they come in from time to time?
I have not seen them.
Okay. So you're not necessarily knowing anyone who may be involved inside of the Planned Parenthood clinic. We're still awaiting, obviously, to see. We understand civilians have been injured. We're not sure how many. Have you seen anyone taken from the building on a stretcher?
I have not.
You have not. And what are you being told by authorities where you are in terms of taking cover?
Just stay away from the windows and keep all the doors closed and locked.
Would you have, if you were to leave, if you were to drive away from the restaurant where you work, would you have to drive by the clinic?
I personally would not.
You would not. And are you getting any guidance from authorities there? Are they checking in with you periodically? How are they updating you about the situation and what you need to do to stay safe?
They're not really updating us on the actual situation, but they are making sure. I mean, there's an officer that keeps checking up on us and making sure we're okay.
Okay. Okay, Bridget, thanks so much for talking to us. Bridget Wolf there nearby this Planned Parenthood clinic, who was there as this all went down. Really appreciate you chatting with us. I want to go now to Chris Voss by phone. He's a former FBI lead international kidnapping negotiator. Chris, talk to us about We have limited information here, quite frankly, in terms of what's happening inside of this Planned Parenthood building. We know that shots were exchanged really just several minutes ago between police officers, and we've heard from a spokesperson this one identified shooter. What would you expect, though, in terms of what may be going on, if this is a hostage situation, or what police officers or negotiators may be saying to this shooter?
Well, this sounds much more as a victim situation as opposed to a hostage situation. The shooter's actions so far tell us a couple things. But this gun battle's been going on for 3 hours, and that means he planned it significantly in advance, and he brought a lot of ammunition and probably multiple weapons with him. He envisioned this lasting a long time. If his actions continue,
Sorry, Chris, can you hear me? Chris, can you hear me? All right, we're going to try to get Chris back on the line. Obviously, this is a fluid situation. But right now, joining me, we have CNN law enforcement analyst Art Roderick. He's a former assistant director of the U.S. Marshal's Office. We also have CNN law enforcement analyst Cedric Alexander, and we have CNN intelligence and security analyst Bob Baer. He's a former CIA operative. To you, Art, we heard from Chris there. He said that it's not a hostage situation. It would appear to him by the pattern of what's happening here that it's not a hostage situation. It's what?
More of a barricade situation.
A barricade
In other words,
situation.
We've got an individual, and there's several things happening here. I mean, you've got an individual inside Planned Parenthood where this whole thing started, and we've come full circle back to it again. But it sounds like he's been sniping people in the parking lot and at the Chase Bank. And now you're talking a quarter of a mile away. It's like 4 football fields.
Between the Planned Parenthood clinic and the Chase Bank.
And then also we had some witnesses talk about being shot at by the King's grocery store.
That's right. One was saying that he was actually leaving the grocery store and a bullet hit a stop sign behind him.
Exactly. So, you know, I was on the U.S. Marshals Special Operations Group for almost 10 years as a counter sniper. That's a pretty good shot. So he's probably got a scoped rifle in there more than likely. And I'm sure he has come armed with several different types of weapons. Now, if he's exchanging gunfire right there in the Planned Parenthood, then I agree with Chris. It's moved beyond a hostage scenario, because officers really wouldn't be firing back in terms of hitting somebody that's an innocent hostage in that situation. So if they're exchanging gunfire, then we've got a barricaded situation going on here, and it'll probably come to a conclusion here fairly quickly.
Cedric, when you look at this situation and what you're hearing, what are the questions that you want answers to?
Well, clearly this is a fully engaged tactical operation where you have, from what's being reported right now, is that these officers are engaged in a gun battle. And I can pretty much assure you, as you heard a couple of my colleagues there even say, this subject probably has come loaded with a great deal of ammunition and weapons. It's not unusual in a situation such as this, and it certainly will probably take some time before this comes to an end, but hopefully it comes to an end quickly. But here's what's really important. Not understand it's the schematics of that building and adjacent buildings that are close by. I'm quite sure there are inner perimeters where you have police officers that are located to make sure that other patrons and those that may be in adjacent buildings are being kept safe. But if this is a fully engaged gunfight, which it appears to be at this point, it suggests it may not be hostages, very well could be barricaded, but we do not know that 100% as of yet.
So, Bob, I know that you've overseen some hostage rescues. It sounds like at this point in time that may not be the concern, but would you completely rule that out?
No, I wouldn't rule it out. And what we're talking about here in military terms is a dynamic entry where the police would come in through several doors using grenades, flashbang grenades, making absolutely sure that they don't kill any potential hostages. If it's just a barricade, the police can take that building at any time by main force and kill the gunman. But right now, I'm sure they're collecting intelligence to make absolutely sure, because what they don't want to do is have somebody in that room with him and kill him by accident. And these guys are trained for that. Just a matter of collecting the intelligence.
Okay, Bob, Art, Cedric, stand by with me. We're going to get a quick break in. We'll have much more on this active shooting going on in Colorado Springs, Colorado, as we speak in just a couple moments.